Okay, hi all. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for an area meeting related to the Petaluma General Plan Update process. My name is Dave Javid with Plan to Place. I am part of the consultant team led by Ramey and Associates, and we're really looking forward to a great evening here with you tonight. Before we get started, as we always do with these meetings, we're going to open up the Spanish translation channel, and I'm going to ask Gustavo to read this before we do that.
La interpretación en simultáneo para esta reunión se dará en los siguientes idiomas. En español, por yo, Gustavo, bajo la opción de español. Por favor, haga clic en el icono Interpretation en su barra de herramientas para acceder al idioma deseado. All right.
Excellent. Thank you, Gustavo. And with that, that channel is now open. And away we go. So just a couple housekeeping notes, just so everyone's aware of how this meeting will be run and how it'll be facilitated. As I'm sure you're probably all Zoom experts at this point, just a couple reminders of how audio will work. For those of you members of the public that are joining us, your audio will be muted for now, but as we move into the small groups, you'll all have an opportunity to contribute, and we'll use the hand raise. If you do have any burning questions that you'd like to ask throughout the presentation, definitely feel free to use the hand raise, and we'll remind you how that works. As we get into this, we do have closed captioning available as well. You'll have to go ahead to that bottom bar and activate that if you did want to use that as well. As I mentioned earlier, we'll use the hand raise feature for any verbal questions, but we also do have the chat room available throughout the meeting. We're going to use that a bunch when we get to small groups. And if you would like to use that, feel free. We probably won't take any questions until toward the end, if there are any, as we're going through the meeting, but that'll be a feature to give you all access when we move to the small groups, so that you can either use that or give us verbal comments, so we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to contribute. And again, as a reminder, the hand raise is through your reactions symbol that's on the bottom bar as well. If you click that, you'll see the little hand symbol, and you could use that feature to let us know that you have a comment. So one thing we're going to do is, it's fun and interactive. Before we kind of get into the main presentation, is we're also going to do a live poll through Mentimeter or Menti. I'm going to bring up a code for you that you'll be able to plug in, and then we'll all be able to access a poll together. It's a dynamic poll that shows everyone's input as it's coming through. So you'll get to experience that. As I mentioned before, we're doing chat. We'll get into the agenda here a bit as well. We are going to have breakout discussions, which is going to be the core of this meeting, because we'd love to hear from you all. And then after the meeting, we do have other area meetings coming up. We'll talk a lot more about that. And we also have a workshop scheduled for September 29th that's citywide. So please spread the word and join us there. And then all the information from tonight's meeting and everything to this point and following with the summaries will all be on the project website at planpetaluma.org. So please stay tuned there as well. Lastly, if there are any technical difficulties or anything that you might need help with throughout the meeting, please feel free to email either paul@plantoplace.com, or for those listening along in Spanish, you could read that there, Gustavo Alonso at, excuse me, Gustavo Alonso Sanchez at gmail.com. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Christina to do the welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Dave. I am Christina Paul. I'm the City of Petaluma's General Plan Project Manager, and we are so glad that you were able to join us for this first of 4 area meetings talking about what the needs and vision for specific areas in Petaluma. I've introduced myself and Dave has introduced himself. I want to also call out the other folks who are on the planning team. There's Ron Whitmore. He is our project manager on the Ramey side. Paul Kronzer with Plan to Place. Heather Hines, our community development director. David Garcia is a new planning staff member. You'll be seeing a lot of him in these meetings, folks who have come before. Gustavo, again, really grateful for him providing simultaneous interpretation. We have Lillian Mensa and Michelle Hernandez, also from Ramey, and Ingrid Alverde from the City of Petaluma. We also have Erica Baptiste, who is our planning manager. thank you. I think that's everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Christina. So I wanted to give us a quick overview of the purpose and the overall agenda for the meeting before I hand it over to Ron to start the presentation. But really, it's to give you all some background as to what this general plan process is all about, and our general approach to the general plan, to answer any questions you might have there. Definitely to highlight what we've been up to thus far, the analyses that have been done, the meetings with the General Plan Advisory Committee, and other outreach that's going to be planned, just to get you up to speed there. The bulk of the meeting is really going to be dedicated toward understanding getting your understanding of the unique qualities and issues that this particular area of the city might face. And again, we'll do that through an interactive exercise with you all during the small group. And then we also want to identify areas or opportunities for physical improvements where land use changes could potentially occur. And we'll do that as well in the small groups. We'll do a mapping exercise, really to kind of hone in on where you think changes could occur and where areas are you think might need the most improvement. So with that, I've mentioned this multiple times here. We're going to give you a quick project overview after we do a poll. Again, that'll kind of be a fun way to understand who's in the room with us. Then we'll get to kind of what we've heard. And as I mentioned before, the small groups, and then we definitely would like you to stick around till the end, because we will have a wrap up. Once we come out of the small groups, we'll do a quick report out as to what we've heard in those small groups, and then talk a little bit about next steps and what meetings are to come. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing screen for 1 second here, and I'm going to bring up this live poll. Actually, you know what? Let me give you the directions first before I do that. Hopefully I didn't stop sharing. Doesn't look like I did. So as I mentioned before, we're going to do this poll through a platform called Mentimeter. And what I'd like you to do now is, the easiest way to do this is on your mobile phone. If you are to go to www.menti.com, I'll also have this actually available. There'll be a QR code that I'm going to bring up here in a second. If that's easier, you can just bring it up, your phone up to the screen and do it that way. If you would like to do this on your computer that you are right now, simply open another window. And if you also go to menti.com, and then what you need to do is plug in this code, which is 55056077. And it's not going to be live quite yet. It will be once I go to that screen. But if you plug that in, you'll be ready to go. And as I mentioned earlier, if it's easier for you, you could also just bring your phone up to the screen now. And if you have a smartphone, it'll capture that QR code and take you directly to the website. And again, you'll have to plug in the code 55056077. And that'll come up again on the screen here in a second. Once I stop sharing, I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. And let's see if I bring the Menti up. Go ahead and start it. Okay. Look at that. You all are all over it already. Fantastic. Let me go ahead and share my screen again, show you all the great things that you're doing. So as an icebreaker, same old question I asked the GPAC, just because it was a fun one and it's one of my favorites, is just to kind of get a sense of how this program works. I'm asking folks to let us know what your favorite flavor of ice cream is. And believe it or not, you could find out a lot about a person just asking him this one simple question. So let's see how we do. So far, it looks like we have about 12 people that participated. I think we might have a couple more folks that are with us. I'm going to wait one more second here. Okay, well, it looks like mint chip followed by salted caramel. All right, I think you all are in line with probably my favorites as well. Excellent. Oh, whoa, look at that, a latecomer for salted. Oh, look out, hold on. We have some newcomers here. All right. Still about average, salted caramel and mint chip. Great. So we're now going to go on to some real questions. Let's see here. Come on, work with me. Hold on one sec. Uh-oh. What's happening here? Interesting. Maybe it's because more folks are coming in. Give me 1 second here. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why it's glitching out on me. All right, let's see what happened here. Okay, hopefully this will do the trick. There we go. All right, so you all should now be able to move on to the next question, which is simply asking, again, we're doing simple demographics question here. Answer any questions that you feel comfortable answering. But we want to get a sense of age. As we go through all of these meetings, we're going to be asking the same questions again, just to make sure that we get a sense of who we're talking to, and then we can kind of fill the gaps of those maybe that we've missed along the way. So this will be really important for us in terms of our analytics. Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Next question is about your race and ethnicity. Here you can select as many as are applicable, and we'll get a quick sense here again of who's in the room with us. Give it a couple more minutes here, or seconds, I guess. Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, next question. Just an understanding of home ownership. As we move through this project, you'll hear a lot about housing, and there'll be a lot of conversations about housing. So again, one of those kind of basic questions to understand your current housing situation. Okay, looks like majority owners. And we'll talk a lot about this too as we get into the small groups and kind of how that feeds into your input. Next is your annual household income. We might now start to feel like you're being part of your census data, but this is all information that, again, we typically like to ask just when we get deeper into this and we're going out to the community. We really want to make sure we're getting a diverse perspective that's represented. Thank you so much for being so quick at getting these questions answered. And then this is kind of a fun one, again, just to understand what best describes why you decided to come to the workshop tonight, kind of your background. Again, you could select all that apply here. It could be that you live in Petaluma, you work in Petaluma, you own a business, you want to know more about this process, and or you want to inform the future development throughout the city. Wow, fantastic. Okay, so it looks like a combination, majority of folks obviously live in Petaluma, some also work, and you all are very interested in all things general plan. Excellent, excellent. Okay, and I believe the final question, so you'll see this map popping up throughout as we go through the different area meetings. This is just generally to get a sense of where you live. Obviously, a majority of you sounds like you live in Petaluma. So based on the map, that'll be different on the phone. If you're taking it, it'll be a full size of this map that you see here. But which quadrant, I guess, of the city you live in would be informative for us to know. Okay, so it looks like, all right, an even split between northeast and northwest. Slight increase to northeast, okay, which all makes sense because we're talking generally about that area tonight. Excellent, all, thank you so much. That was fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing screen real quick and bring the presentation back up, and we will get started with that. Let's see. All right, Ron, I'm going to bring this up and I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Gustavo, Christina, and all of you for joining us this evening and for your quick and enthusiastic responses on the initial polling. As Christina mentioned, I'm Ron Whitmore, a principal with Ramey and Associates and the project manager for the Petaluma General Plan update. Because this may be the first project activity many of you have participated in, we wanted to provide a little background information tonight. However, as Dave mentioned, it is going to be a very short presentation and pretty high level, since we want to devote the bulk of our time tonight to getting your thoughts and input. You can always learn more about the project at planpetaluma.org. And at the end of tonight's session, we'll provide additional information about additional events coming up where you can learn even more, take a deeper dive into planning and general plans if you're really interested in that particular topic. So very briefly, a little bit about what general plans are and their purpose. So state law requires that each local government have a general plan. And a GP describes a community's vision and establishes policies that guide future local decision-making. Some of the general plan's most important policies inform future land use, development, and related regulation. A GP also identifies programs to implement general plan policy. General plans are long-term and comprehensive. They usually have 20 to 30-year time horizons and can address most community priorities. General plans have 8 required elements by law, all of which have unique requirements. Over time, a general plan impacts residents' day-to-day life in a number of ways, including the preservation of open space, housing, roadway and path improvements, parks, and economic development, to name a few. Because they have such a long time horizon, general plans are only updated periodically. The last update in Petaluma was this point some time ago. I think the plans were adopted in 2008-ish, so the planning process probably started nearly 20 years ago. General plan updates are therefore a unique opportunity to bring the community together, hold a community conversation about priorities and strategies, and collaboratively create a path forward. Not only will Petaluma's general plan update address critical topics, but it will do so in a holistic way that focuses on strategies that are synergistic, that accomplish several goals at the same time. In addition, the updated general plan will integrate with other city plans and with the city's regulatory system and decision-making processes. So the general plan update process and project. What is this going to look like in Petaluma? First of all, the project is more than just a general plan update. It also includes a climate action and adaptation plan that builds on the city's climate emergency framework. They are being done in tandem to ensure that they are complementary and consistent. Importantly, the planning process also builds on recent city planning like the ULI Technical Assistance Panel report and the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. And it is being done in coordination with several other ongoing planning projects like the VMT Thresholds project and the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan update. The project will also include an environmental impact report as required by law. Petaluma General Plan update is uniquely comprehensive. Including the 8 required elements, the updated general plan will address many local priorities like environmental protection, housing, transportation, parks, climate change, and hazard mitigation. I need to stress, however, that general plans are primarily policy documents. They can't address all of the city's challenges, and they require follow-up action to be effective. For example, the general plan can identify the need for a parks master plan, but it will not in itself include that plan. Petaluma General Plan will be designed for easy implementation, but it will take years of follow-up activity. This is a multi-year project, and we're just getting started. During the discovery phase, the planning team has been preparing background reports for all of the general plan topics. With this area meeting, or the set of area meetings, we're now launching the public visioning phase, which will conclude with the City Council adopting the general plan vision and guiding principles. This initial public input will also inform the alternatives phase, which will conclude with the City Council adopting a land use policy map to guide the city's future development. We will then build on the discovery, visioning, and alternatives phases to prepare a complete policy framework for the general plan, which will then be the foundation for the final product that goes through final adoption and review. General plan updates are a lot of work. This slide gives you a sampling of some of the major work products. Importantly, the city's policy-making body, the City Council, approves each major interim policy product and will adopt the final updated general plan. The power of the update is not just the final product, but the process of bringing the community together. A general plan is effective to the extent that it reflects representative community input. Again, to reinforce what David said earlier, the reason we track demographics of participants is to make sure that we're truly hearing from a representative cross-section of the community. In terms of roles, city staff provide expertise specific to the city, its operations, and its plans. Similarly, but from an objective third-party perspective, the consultant team brings a broad range of expertise in planning, engineering, economics, housing, and many other topics. But only the public can provide place-based local knowledge. The people who live, work, and are intimate with this place provide critical knowledge that we otherwise don't have access to. Therefore, public outreach and engagement is a major focus of this project. At each phase of the project, you and your neighbors will have a variety of opportunities to shape the plan. Again, we are just starting. We'll have another round of area meetings during the next phase to discuss specific options for the future of this part of the city. Other opportunities to learn and provide input will include surveys, workshops, and other forums. There's also a general plan advisory committee, and I noticed that several GPAC members are here tonight. Thank you. And that group advises the planning team on an ongoing basis through its regular meetings that are open to the public. For more detailed information and to sign up for regular updates, again, go to planpetaluma.org. The general plan update is not starting from scratch. Christina is now going to give you a sense of some of the work that the city has been doing and what it has already been hearing from the residents of the area. We thought this would be a useful way to get you thinking about priorities before we invite you to share your input in small groups. Christina?
Hello, everyone. Yes, so the city of Petaluma has been working on establishing a community vision for the city on sort of an ongoing rolling basis, but some of that work formally began with thinking about city plans and priorities in 2019. And then we started to actually dig into what we wanted to see in the general plan with a range of general plan specific activities. So again, the city council goals and priorities began to be set in 2019. In December, we did a public survey of community members, and we'll get into some of the results of that in the next few slides. Planning members visited a bunch of committees and commissions in 2020 before we issued the general plan RFP, so that we were sure what kind of plan we wanted to ask for so we could really shape that project. Since we brought Ramey and Associates on to help us with this effort, we have convened listening sessions with City Council and members of the GPAC. We have held a number of GPAC meetings which are open to the public, at which folks are welcome to contribute and participate. We have the city itself has established a climate emergency framework, which is informing this work. And we are listening to and sort of getting input from the ad hoc committee focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion that the city has been convening. So we're making sure that we take all of these different efforts that are coming from a citywide perspective and integrating those into the general plan. Out of all of this work, we have distilled these initial few priorities. This is not a final list, but it really helps us to capture what we hear over and over. Sustainability is a big focus of ours. Again, we're going to be completing a climate and action and adaptation plan, resilience and safety, as well as environmental justice. We are going to be preparing an environmental justice element of this plan. We're working towards carbon neutrality. Again, we're doing equity and health through that environmental justice element, thinking about housing through our housing element, as well as land use in general. Thinking about infill development so that we can preserve the deeply held value of the urban growth boundary. Thinking about the role of the Petaluma River and streams, active transportation, and these other themes that you can see here are all really going to be highlighted in this document. It's a very comprehensive document. And it's important to us as part of this planning process that we think about how this all fits together in a web rather than thinking about, how do we take housing and plan for that by itself. Housing impacts many of the systems in the city. So we really want to plan for all of this together. Next slide, please. So when we, in December of 2020, asked some folks, this was a public survey. So we asked the community of Petaluma where they wanted to see more housing. And you can see from this heat map where people dropped pins where they suggested that there might want to be more housing. Next slide, please. You can see a lot of that clustered near downtown. A lot of folks were interested in more street life, also near downtown and at some major intersections. You can see actually also, interestingly for this conversation in particular, quite a few dots along the McDowell corridor and around the proposed upcoming Corona Road station. Next slide, please. Folks are really interested in safer streets. Again, you can see McDowell being highlighted here, and the Redwood Highway overpass. You can also see the major corridors of Petaluma Boulevard and Washington Boulevard really being highlighted here, and then major intersections throughout the city. So this is something that we're going to be working towards as part of the transportation element of this general plan. Next slide, please. Folks were also really interested in better access to transit. You'll note the highlight of the 2 smart stations here. And for some reason, there's a dot that came up on the left. We're not really sure why so many people highlighted that area. It seems a little, there's not much going on right there, but you'll really see that Corona Road station popping up here, as well as downtown and the downtown smart station. And then major points along some of the arterials in town. Next slide, please. Folks were also really interested in new parks, particularly on the McNair Peninsula, near downtown, adjacent to downtown, and the river, and then also around the fairgrounds. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it back to Ron. Yes?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. So as you can see, we have a pretty good idea of some citywide priorities and opportunities for improvement, and that's really just a summary of some of what we've heard. But what we have yet to do is hear from people about very specific parts of town. That is why we're having this series of area meetings starting tonight and continuing through next week, each focusing on a different part of town. We know that thanks, Dave. We know that each neighborhood and part of town is unique. So we're zooming in on each quadrant of the city and focusing on its particular conditions, issues, and opportunities for change. We wanted to keep this overview short so that we have as much time as possible to listen to you. So let's get right to it. I'm going to hand it back to Dave now, who will explain how we'll approach the rest of the session, which will be mostly in small group conversation before we come back as a large group and share our insights.
Great. Thank you, Ron and Christina, for that great overview. So yeah, as has been the ongoing theme here, the most important part of this meeting is to hear from you all. And we figure the best way to do that, it looks like we have about 22 or 23 folks keep jumping on and off here, members of the public with us. So we're going to break up into 3 groups. And within each of those groups, we're going to have a 2-part session. The first one is going to be brainstorming about assets and issues, focused primarily around these 2 questions about what makes an area unique and special, and what are the primary issues facing the area. So that'll probably be the first third of the meeting, and the second third of that session will be that mapping exercise we spoke of earlier, really trying to hone in on areas of change and stability, what areas you'd like to see changed throughout this quadrant and why. And the why is like what type of mix of uses or I'm sorry, mix of housing or shopping or jobs should go in that area. What areas in general should remain the same? What's working well and should be kept the way it is? And then in general, what other improvements might be needed? So is it additional transit routes? Is it different modes of transportation to get to and through the city? Is it more parks or other civic uses? Anything goes there. So whatever you think would be beneficial, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And all of that information you'll see will be posted onto a virtual board as we move through that discussion. So the goal is we're going to come back together right around 7:45, and amazingly, I think we're almost right on time here. So we're going to have about 45 minutes for that session, and then we'll come back here, do a quick report out so we can hear generally what each group talked about, and then we'll talk a little bit about next steps and send you on your way right at 8 o'clock. So with that, I might need just one extra second here to set up the group. So it looks like a few people might have moved around here. Let's see. Okay. I think we are set. And the last thing I forgot to mention is we do also have our Spanish interpreter, Gustavo, with us, who's here in the main room. So I'm going to ask real quick before we do this transition, if there is anyone taking advantage of that service and is listening to this in Spanish and would like to stay in this room, please let me know now by using the hand raise. And if you accidentally get moved to a room and want to come back here knowing that this is where the Spanish interpretation is happening, you can simply leave the room that you're in and you'll end up right back here. And when I open these rooms, just a heads up, some of you are going to get transferred over into another room. Others will stay right here with me. And then we will have our discussion here, and then other folks will join us at the end. So I don't see any hands raised. So with that, I am going ahead and open the rooms, and we'll see you all again shortly. Have fun. All right. Thank you all again here joining us. Let's see. So you all should now be able to unmute yourselves. I am going to bring up the Miro board, the resource that we're going to be using. Once everyone is settled here, excellent. Thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And Michelle, I'm going to tag you to do our report out since you did such a great job a couple nights ago.
For sure.
Thank you. Unless there's a member of our group that wants to do a report out, that's an option too, but I hate making someone do it if they don't want to. Looks like folks are joining us back here now. Let's see, and in one more second, everyone will be forced to come on back. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a great time in your small groups. I know we did. We're gonna wait just one more second here, make sure everyone has an opportunity to get back here to this main room. I still see potentially a few folks that are in the other rooms. Maybe just 5 more seconds here. Okay. I think we have pretty much everyone back with us. Thank you again for sticking with us and all the great input you provided. I know we had a great discussion here in this room. And now we just want to do a quick round robin and get a very short overview of the conversation that was held. It might be easiest to bring your map up and we can kind of, you know what, actually, I could just bring the map up and move room to room to make it easier for everyone. So this time I'm going to start with room number 3, and Christina, if you're ready to share or whoever you might have nominated to have share out what you all talked about. And I could zoom into your map for you.
Thanks. I love going first. I was actually trying to message David on the side. David, do you want to do our group's report out?
I think I was focused on the nuts and bolts of the notes. So I think you do a better overview of all the things.
Oh boy. Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't get the opportunity. I missed my role in volunteering somebody else to go through this. All right. So, we had a lot of conversation around the fact that this is a pretty heavily residential neighborhood. That is a major resource that's well connected by trails, but there is a need to address safety issues in getting around and transportation, to address the congestion on the Washington Street corridor, and think about connections to across 101, whether that be enhancing the Corona crossing, making that wider and safer, or thinking about other crossings and thinking about non-vehicular priority crossings like Lynch Creek Tail or in the vicinity of Rainier. We talked about the importance of open space in this neighborhood, both for wildlife and for humans, and the idea of wildlife crossing through. Also, the idea of focusing some potentially development around the Corona Road station, whether that be infill development so that we aren't expanding the urban growth boundary or considering expanding the urban growth boundary, particularly just adjacent to the Corona Road station. And I just wrote all my kinds of notes all over the place. This was not what I was meant to do, I apologize. And people really were talking about how the view from the neighborhood and from the open space of the mountain is really important to preserve. Folks in the group, let me know if there's anything that I am not hitting on, or Dave, I can't see our notes about like what folks wanted to change.
The broadband and what Dave was talking about.
Okay.
Steve, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. So we did talk about the importance of broadband, especially in a COVID world, of increasing equity through access to broadband. Let's see, I did talk about the importance of the river, also in the general open space theme, and needing to address flooding. And I think those were, and then think about kind of creative economic reuse. So whether that be thinking about using hotels for affordable housing or housing the unhoused, or also thinking about having fab maker spaces and other kinds of incubation spaces in this neighborhood.
Excellent.
May I also add one more thing, and that is the noise?
Thanks, Veronica. Thank you. Yeah. So we were hearing that with the elevation of Highway 101, that's really caused an increase in noise impacts in this neighborhood that we should think about treating in more progressive ways than big concrete sound barriers.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I hear a lot of similarities to what we talked about in our group as well. So next I'm going to go to Ron and his group. And
I thought you were segueing to your group, Dave. Thanks.
I was just trying to throw you off, Ron. I was trying to throw you off.
Well, like Christina, I was completely unsuccessful at recruiting somebody else to do this. Won't repeat much of what she shared because we heard a lot of parallels in our conversation. But I got to say, what I was struck by was how much people love living in this part of town. Has great recreational and open space and trail assets. They're like a real gem of an immersion school. Obviously, they appreciate that the regional community center and park are in their neighborhood. Love how close they are to shopping. And that is not even half the list. In terms of opportunities for change and improvement, I'll try to focus on things Christina didn't already mention. Further enhancing trail and walking and biking opportunities, including connectivity between some of the existing elements. Some comments about how the urban growth boundary and related buffers serve not only to preserve space and views, but also double nicely in a role of hazard mitigation. A lot of specific comments about particular neighborhoods within the town, whether that's how they could use improvements in terms of signaling or traffic, or better or different mix of uses, or complementary improvements around mobility or the like. Very active chat, and I haven't had a chance to digest the chat yet, but lots of additional great ideas. I think so. I saw at least something about a park, a library annex, and a whole slew of other ideas. So
excellent.
More than I can do justice to, but if I missed anything really critical, anyone else in the group can feel free to chime in at this point if they'd like.
Great, thank you. And just a note, while we go to this final room, all of this great information that you shared will be summarized. There'll be a transcript of everything that came through the chat. So you'll see everyone's comments in greater detail that we're providing in this quick snippet. But Chris, did you have something to add to this group before we move to the next? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Just one thing, I think it was John that mentioned the Petaluma Valley Hospital. I thought that was a really interesting comment, the need to really consider that an asset. And he talked about earthquake dangers on this part of town, and that there needs to be a focus there about getting that ready and beefing things up there for emergency preparedness, which I'd not heard before, which I thought was a really great comment.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Chris. Okay, last but not least, we'll go to our group, and I asked Michelle to report out for us. I'm just going to focus on the map, and we jumped like right into areas of change and improvement. Everyone wanted to really kind of meld all the questions together, which was great. I will say the ongoing theme, which I saw in everyone else's, was just safer streets in general, and providing and making sure that access for pedestrian, bikes, and cars, and movement of cars, particularly through this area, was extremely important. And as roadways cross over railroad tracks. So I just want to highlight that, but I'll hand it over to you, Michelle, if there's anything else that we haven't heard about yet to highlight.
Yeah, a little bit differently from the other groups. There was a lot of great conversation about the train station and the Lagunitas like beer brewery area, and how that entire area could be used for future development, but any of that future development should really be conscious of the suburban nature and family friendly nature and use of this sub area. There was also a lot of, like Dave mentioned, a lot of conversation about safer routes to school and how all those different trail and railroad and street crossings can be improved and bettered for a lot of different uses and different people with it who live in the area or who visit the area, and just a lot of those types of conversations, and similar things to what the other groups mentioned as well.
And I'll add that there was a lot of emphasis on, getting across town without getting so that this area doesn't feel as isolated, so that the city divide between the river and the freeway, and that being a challenge.
Great point. Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing all that great information with us. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint again, and we're going to quickly talk through next steps and what's to come. And I believe I'm handing it back over to Ron. Back to you, Ron.
Thank you, Dave. And yeah, I'll try to keep this really quick and get us back home virtually in a few minutes. So yeah, as Dave mentioned, I do want to emphasize that we've captured everything you've shared in writing and or audio, and we'll be sure to summarize that neatly and concisely in the summary report, along with the other area meetings, which are coming up starting again this Wednesday, and then Monday and Wednesday next week. Please do encourage your friends and neighbors to come to a meeting that focuses on their neighborhood. Also, we are going to start having what we call drop-in pop-ups at various events that are either events or places that people frequent, whether it's farmers markets or shopping centers in the coming weeks. Again, because we need so much to hear a variety of different input, this is an attempt at going where people are and giving them a very quick and easy way to share some input. We'll be asking questions on boards that people can respond to in 5 minutes or less around priorities, issues, and opportunities, what they love about Petaluma, and where they'd like to see different types of change. Again, very similar to tonight, but a different format, hopefully very accessible for people who are just coming by the pop-up as part of their daily or weekly routine. So look for those around town. And then also coming up later this summer and fall, if you do want to become more of a planning aficionado and really take a deep dive into general plans and how they relate to the rest of the planning and regulatory framework, encourage you to attend the Planning 101 session on September 8th, co-hosted with Know Before You Grow. Please also mark your calendar for the evening of September 29th. We'll be pulling together a lot of what we hear over the coming weeks through these area meetings and pop-ups and through other means to get closer to a refined vision guiding principles for the city on its way to the city council. Also, for additional educational benefit, we'll be offering some educational forums focused on a variety of key topics facing the city: economic development, climate change, the future of retail, etc. Look for information on those in the coming months and weeks. And then, just so you know, we're coming to the city council up in October, sharing some of the highlights of the work we've been doing during that discovery phase, which we've been doing, which we started with and are continuing to wrap up in the coming months. And we'll share some of those insights with city council. This is just a taste of some of what's coming up. Again, we encourage you to sign up for the project email list, which is you can access easily through the planpetaluma.org website. We also, at any time you have questions or comments, feel free to contact the city via the Plan Petaluma email address. Several people monitor that address, and we'll be sure to get a response to any questions people may pose. Website is always the best place to go for the latest information and to direct people who you think may be interested in the project. Again, I guess I'll pass it back over to Dave, but before he closes us out, I just want to again thank everybody. Loved the comments people shared. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy lives. And please continue to stay involved. We'll look forward to working with you over the next 1.5 to 2 years.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ron. I just wanted to elevate a couple of things that came through chat, and I love that you all are thinking about great places for us to have these intercept or pop-up meetings. Lane mentioned going to junior high and high school is definitely high on our list. We definitely want to hear from the future leaders of the city, and that is definitely something we want to do. In front of grocery stores, definitely agree with that. We want to go to places where we know people are going, especially these days. We do have that on the list of places that we will pop up, and once we get that date finalized, we'll make sure to share that out. And one that I also love is basketball courts, because I love playing basketball, so I'll be there at Leghorn popping up while I play some hoops. So great idea there as well. And we see other great suggestions coming through about St. Vincent Church. We definitely do have that planned as well, to focus a pop-up or a few pop-ups, hopefully around the Latinx community, to make sure that we're hearing from those folks as well and providing access for them, because we want to make sure we're hearing from a diverse cross-section of the entire community. So that will be very important, and we do have other community leaders that are helping us set those up as well. So thank you for that suggestion and highlighting that, and all of these great input that's coming in. Santa Rosa JC, this is fantastic. Keep those ideas coming in. As Ron mentioned, the website is available. There's an opportunity to provide input directly through the website as well. So keep those great ideas or any other thoughts you have from tonight coming as we go down the road here together. So again, unless city staff had anything else to mention, just want to thank you all again for spending this evening with us, and we can go ahead and wrap it up and send you on your way.
Yes, thanks all for attending. This was really fantastic. Come and tell us what you think about the other parts of town as well.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Good night.